As a child, I always wondered, did people in the past directly move from barter system to cash as we know today? Although I knew paper currency came into being because metal coins were too heavy to carry around and too difficult to not lose. Because obviously, I misplace my coins all the time while buying candies. So this video is for those interested and those still wondering about the evolution of money and what events led to each new development. If you think I'll be ending this video by talking about bitcoins, you could not be more wrong. Subscribe to this channel if you're intrigued by all things interesting, just like I am. And I promise to not let you down. Alright, time traveling back to 5,000 years ago when if you wanted something someone else had, you had to offer them something they did not have. This was called barter system, and obviously not a good way to buy stuff. Because how do you know Jim's magic legumes are worth the value of Dwight's telescope? Which is why in some places they would literally cut the coins to make change. They then started exchanging other valuable goods such as animal skin, weapons, salt, which apparently is still being carried out in certain parts of the world. Fun fact, did you know Roman soldiers were paid in salt, and that is where the word salary comes from. Similarly, archaeologists found that many workers were paid in shells. These were engraved with numbers that showed how much grain the rulers owed them. And these were found in abundance at the bed of the Indian Ocean, which is why, if you are from an Arab descent or a South Asian or both, you probably heard your mom use the word cowrie at least once in your lifetime. This system is still being used in certain African tribes and countries, and is the oldest form of currency known to man. Now let's talk about coins. Up until August 2021, it was believed that Lydians were the first to mint coins, but recent discoveries led to the finding of the oldest known minting house in China, which dated back to 620 AD. So, what do we learn from this? Knowledge is historically situated. It is a product of its time and is specific to it. What you know to be a fact today may not be the truth tomorrow. Therefore, be open to whatever is new. Now, remember this sentence for the end of this video. Back to coinage. Fun fact, many believe that Mesopotamians used metal currency for transactions, but really, it was used in written accounts to depict how much farm workers were owed. Anywho, carrying these coins, especially when there was a lot owed, meant heavy lifting. And of course, although most coins back then had a hole in the middle, through which people would pass a rope to keep them all together, it wasn't ideal for traveling. Which is why the Chinese used IOUs. Fun fact, did you know it is a phonetic acronym to say I owe you? First made of leather, then of paper, both originating in China. They called it flying cash because of its tendency to get carried away by the wind. This made trade much easier, especially global trade, which is why it fascinated Marco Polo. And so he introduced paper currency system to Europe after his visit to China in 1200 AD. But it wasn't until the 1660s that the first paper currency was minted in Sweden. That's about 400 years. Simply writing down or printing currency was easier then, wasn't it? Anybody could do that, and it wouldn't hold any value. Which is why the gold standard was introduced in the UK. A standard unit of currency is kept at the value of a fixed quantity of gold. Fun fact, when you make a purchase of gold in Poland, your information needs to be submitted to the government so they can confiscate the item if they need to increase their gold reserves in times of crises. In the 1900s, Gold Standard Act was issued in America, which led to the formation of central bank. But we all know how the idea of gold standard quickly tanked after the Great Depression in 1929. What went so wrong that it lasted for such short time? Well, that's a story for another time, which is why you should consider subscribing to my channel. Anyway, back to the gold standard. In 1971, the US completely disassociated the dollar with gold. As of today, the US dollar is not linked with any specific asset. So you know what that means? Stay tuned till the end of this video to have your jaw dropped. In the 1950s, credit cards were introduced. The first one was a club card. In 1967 came the ATM. Fun fact, did you know the wife of the inventor of the ATM never once used the ATM in her whole life. 1999 brought us the mobile banking system, and the year 2009, the year after one of the history's greatest economic crash, brought us Bitcoin. Why do I put it that way? Because a lot of people who talk smack about cryptocurrencies fail to realize why Bitcoin came into existence, and why to this day, despite all the crashes and all the unpleasant cryptomaniacs, the gist of it remains. Transactions in anonymity and avoiding the decisions of the few to impact the lives of everyone else. The incentive of its adoption are many, and many are yet to be discovered. To name a few, you can do many more transactions faster and cheaper. Instant settlement, which is something alien to the financial establishments we have today, and it's almost free. It is the safest way to acquire and hold assets known today, without discrimination based on demography or class, because you will be doing it anonymously. If you thought Bitcoins are currently the last stop of currency evolution, then you should know you are entirely wrong. Governments of many countries have openly spoken against it, and international organizations such as the World Economic Forum have openly refused to call Bitcoins or any cryptocurrencies as money. Their argument is that the value of such digital coins is based on trust and faith, and not a stable store of value or asset. Ring a bell, does it? 90% of the countries worldwide have already begun working on CBDCs, and there's already a country whose pilot ran with over 120 million participants. If you've already guessed it, it is China. Speakers at the WEF have confidently stated that in 5 years, digital currencies will be a common and safe mode of transaction that reduces transactional costs by a staggering number. This timeline is not an exaggeration, because I can confirm that a developing economy such as my home country had already pushed a nationwide agenda of digital transactions in currencies back in 2017 and 18, which I had personally taken part in. The government of India worked on a Digital India movement, where many like myself reached out to the smallest of the vendors and the rural crowd, which are the majority of the Indian population, to not only educate them, but also get them on board with the digital medium of payments. As of 2022, 72 billion transactions were carried out digitally in India, while it was only around 13 to 14 billion when we first went off teaching people about it in 2018. If a country with majority of its population living in poverty and illiteracy can be already equipped to welcome CBDCs, one can only guess how far ahead are other nations. Why should you know about all this? Well, because when CBDCs take over, can your government record all of your payments and transactions? Yes. Can they know when you purchase something you shouldn't be purchasing? Maybe. Can they know how much tax you've paid versus how much actual business you've made for that tax period? Yes. So given this, will they be able to give you specific interest rates based on your profile? Sure. How is all this possible? Because there will be no cash. Taxing on every transaction level becomes much easier, even on your 20% tips. To know more about CBDCs, click the link down in the description box. We are walking towards the Great Reset. We have more debt than the goods produced, and nobody knows if we can ever pay all that back. The economy is on the verge of collapse. But how do we know all this? Allow me to explain by subscribing to this channel. Stay tuned and make sure to hit that like.